Is that about the same level as it was in 1936, which is really low. And every year, the U.S. renegotiates its treaty with Mexico, reducing the water because there's less water to use, and the treaty is based on proportions. That's the dilemma facing communities here in Baja California. Nearly everyone living here, from Tijuana to Ensenada, is dependent on that Colorado River. The Stocker subdivision, known as Playa La Mision and Loma La Mision, is one community separated by the quota. And our well is owned by water company members, and it now serves 220 families. Cesspit is available, but only to about 20% of the members living along the beach. And all of those members also contract with the Mision Water Company because the source is unreliable. As you probably know, it's often shut off for weeks at a time. Our uptime, by contrast, I'm happy to say, is over 99%. So that's pretty good. Last July, the alarm bells all seemed to ring simultaneously. Throughout the area, shallow wells accessed by tanker trucks were drying out. The big community to the south of us across the estuary on the other side, that we refer to as Ejido, the well ran dry entirely. And since then, they've had tanker trucks driving up and down that hill daily, trying to stock up their pila. We found we had the perfect storm on our hands. Because our well was behaving differently, the water levels were way substandard. We measure it on a regular basis. And at the same time, water company members were using water like crazy, record high numbers. We were actually exceeding our license limits. So we had to get their attention. But let me tell you about the license limits, because it's really critical to the story and critical to how we got the community to cooperate. So you see, we own the well, but we don't own the water. All water in Mexico, surface and subsurface, rivers, lakes, aquifers, that's all controlled by the federal government through an organization called CONAGUA. They dictate to any licensed user how many cubic meters you can take from the source, whether it's a lake or a river or an aquifer in our case, exactly how much you can use each year. We're licensed by CONAGUA. Our license says we can use 37,357 cubic meters. Let me make it simple. 10 million gallons a year. That's the amount. It's not a rough amount. If you exceed that, CONAGUA has the right to fine you, to revoke the license, and shut the well. So for us, it was a matter of getting this very critical message across to the community. Back in early July, in fact, June and half of July, we consistently exceeded that amount. And we're required to report quarterly how much water we use, how many cubic meters. So that's kind of the basis, the leverage that we had with the community. We also recognize that there was no way to deal with this at the supply end. There's no way to do a rain dance and get rain to fall earlier than the rainy season. And you can't, there's nothing you can do at that point. But if you can get the community to cut back on usage, that's as good as having more water. We had it, it was overtaxing the well, and it was violating the license. So the issue is, how do we get the community to do that? Water use habits are extremely difficult to change. Most of we immigrants, gringos especially, have never had to deal with a shortage of anything. You know, we'll come from the horn of plenty. You run out of water, you pay a little higher bill, no problem. Same thing with gasoline and everything else. Case in point, last summer, Governor Gavin Newsom addressed the water crisis in California, pleading with citizens to use less. Guess what happened? The following report, usage went up 20%. Go figure. What was it? You know, I want to get mine while I can get it. So we had to get their attention. So we met and we decided on 5 separate courses of action. And we called it 5 emergency measures. We crafted it. We figured out how to make it understandable. Part of the challenge in the water company is that a lot of things that go on are based on, you know, cubic meters, on gallons, on issues about the aquifer and the levels of the water. One of the challenges is just making it digestible so people understand very quickly what the deal is. And I try to do that at our annual meetings, and I try to transform that into this announcement. But here's what the 5 items are that we released on July 15th. The gallons per day limit for each family will be reduced in steps, totaling a 1/3 cut. Every year when we issue invoices, we have the price for 1 year's service. It also tells everyone how many gallons per day they are permitted to use. Penalty fees are doubled for overuse beyond the gallons per day limit. If someone uses more than they're entitled to, we try to coax them back into line by charging them a little bit more money based on some kind of a fine per gallon that they used over the limit. Thirdly, a moratorium on new water service contracts is imposed immediately. So we have not taken on any new customers since that time, and I'm establishing a waiting list for people that want to get our water. Fourth, we found out that landscape watering alone constitutes 25% of the water we pump out of the aquifer. These are gardeners and caretakers standing there with a hose, spraying it all over the place. And yeah, these are people that are washing down their driveway, washing down their walkways with a hose. So amazing amount of unnecessary waste. And we said, you owners have to stop it. You have to advise your caretakers and your gardeners. We have to save that water for essential human needs. And then finally, the big hitter is if the community exceeds a total of 100 cubic meters on any given day, because that's our limit, that's what that license comes down to, is 100 cubic meters per day. That's 27,000 gallons. We will shut down the well for the next 24 hours. Sounds punitive. It really is not punitive. The objective there is to get the numbers back into line so that we are not reporting a major overuse to Conagua, who can then in turn penalize us or shut the well. Those 5 emergency measures were challenged the first day that they went over. It did happen. We shut the well. People talked about it. It hit Facebook. It was a big discussion. That's all it took. They haven't gone over since. So we realized that one of the keys to success on this was to tell people, okay, what can you do to cut back? You know, what's the magic sauce here? You know, everybody flushes the toilet multiple times a day. Everybody showers in the morning. You know, it's all the normal things you do. What are we supposed to do? Not do some of those things? So we said, no, here's the deal. We came up with a list of 25 ways to use less water. We studied this. We talked about it forever. We got some ideas off Facebook and everywhere else. Made this list. 5 of them had to do with remodeling. Like if you're going to remodel, or if you think you're ready to replace your toilets or your hot water heater or whatever, think about the new toilets that use less than a gallon to flush. Think about tankless hot water heaters that can be located right where you need it, so you're not wasting water. You know, you get hot water in seconds, not minutes. Things of that nature. But basically, the other 20 were all ideas that you can do right away. You know, you can just change your habits, and it doesn't cost anything. So I'm going to demonstrate. Here is the very sophisticated equipment that you need. It's one of these. This is a dishpan, folks. And you need one of these. It's a 5-gallon bucket. Home Depot. Sandy and I converted our habits in August, and we started doing these 10 things. Number one, do not use a hose. Wind it up, hang it somewhere, put it away. A 3/4 inch diameter hose at modest pressures, 45 pounds per square inch, delivers 10 gallons a minute. So if you're out there watering and you're doing it for 10, 15 minutes, figure it out, 150 gallons. If you want to clean your driveway or your walkway, get some exercise and use a broom. Not complicated. yeah, right, get somebody else. Early in the morning, when you get up and you're shaving, brushing your teeth. See, this is Zen-like. You have to understand a lot of this is Zen. You have to get your head in the right place. So when you're doing that early in the morning, don't let the water run. Get the toothbrush wet, turn it off. Toothpaste, brush. A little more water, but just instantly turn it off. Same thing with shaving. Water hasn't got to be running the whole time you're shaving. You know, we all have these single lever faucets, and we start to think digitally. Well, the water is either on or it's off. And when it's on, it's at full blast. No, you can modulate this. You can make it run slowly. Really not a problem, like when you're washing your hands or anything else. We run only full loads of laundry. Most washing machines out there today still use about 30 gallons to do a load of wash. Brand new ones use a whole lot less. Showering. Very important. The bucket we use to collect that cold water until hot water comes up. Okay, so now we got some hot water. We get myself nice and wet. Turn the water off. It's off. Take my scrubby, a little bit of soap. All this time, get all those places. All this time, the water's off. I mean, you can go on with this for quite a while, depending on your size and inclination. Then turn the water on again. Rinse down. If you're using a wand, by the way, this is great because you can get all those places very quickly. And you've used a total of about 3 minutes worth of water. And if you have low flow shower head, that's probably going to cost you 4 or 5 gallons total to take a shower. That's a vast difference compared to what most of us do. Standing under the shower, water's running the whole time. And then we luxuriate a little bit at the end. Oh, it feels so good, hot water. So these are simple changes that you need to make. But now we've got water in a bucket. So what do? So every morning, I do is I carry that bucket of water from the shower into the kitchen, and I pour, a couple of gallons in there, so it's three-quarter full or so. And then as we go through the day, we have 6 cats, so we're feeding cats all day long. Yeah, this is in the kitchen sink. And normally what you do is you run the water and you rinse the dish off before you put it in the dishwasher, typically. But if you just put them in here, there's a few gallons in there, it'll soak, and an hour or two later, you pick it out and it's clean. You put it in the dishwasher, you set it for a fast clean, so it runs from 40, 45 minutes instead of a couple of hours. You're using less water, and then you still have water in this bucket, and it's great for watering the plants. Targeted watering. You go around, you spill the water on the plants. It's got a few flecks of food in it, so it's fertilizer, not a bad thing. And that's how we go through the day. We can also use that bucket to flush. So this gets down to some real intimate details, but we don't flush all day. We flush in the morning, and it's got this poem associated with it. If it's yellow, let it mellow. If it's brown, flush it down. I know you're having breakfast. I apologize. So that really is important, because every flush, even with newer toilets, you're talking about at least a couple of gallons every time you use it. So there's another big savings opportunity. Another thing I do is I take that bucket and I wash the truck. It's got 2 gallons maybe in the bucket of water. I use a sponge, get it nice and wet. I then wipe it with a chamois to get it semi-dry. And then I use an old bath towel. And I do it section by section. You can't do the whole truck at one time. You have to do it section by section. And if you do it early in the morning, when the dew is still on the vehicle, if it's sitting outside, it works like a charm. Car looks perfectly shiny. You still have a gallon of water left up. You've washed the whole truck. It's a big thing. 1 gallon. That's it. You still have a gallon left over. Water the plants. But that's our total investment on high tech. 1 dishpan, 1 bucket. Now, what difference did it make? I think you'll be impressed. Let me put my scrubby away. So we did a survey for all of 2021. That's before we really knew we had a drought on our hands of more than the normal proportions. And we looked at 50 full-time residents and what their usage patterns were. And some were kind of high and some were amazingly low, but the average, if we throw out the real high ones and the real low ones, the average came out to be 5,100 gallons per month. Probably pretty standard for Americans. So in employing these things, and by the way, Sandy and I felt exactly on average. That's how much we were using, 5,100 gallons. And now we instituted these things. Instead of 5,000, we now use less than 2,000. We're in at about 1,500 to 1,800 gallons a month. That's over 60%. We made no sacrifices. We shower just as often, and I'm pretty good. The plants are thriving. Essentially, we trimmed a lot of waste that we just never noticed before. We started paying attention. So we continue to monitor this, and we continue to keep the community up to date. Drawing this to a close, I'm going to read to you our latest update that we issued on November 30th. And these are the kinds of messages we put out there to keep everybody up to speed. And it says, November update on the water crisis. This emergency is not over. Item number 1, the drought is still with us. We've had just 2 days of light rain since last April, and no rain in the forecast currently. Water levels in the well remain at substandard levels. This emergency is not over. Item number 2, the community has responded to our urgent pleas to save water and are employing the water saving tips that we published, adding their own ingenuity and new ideas as well. Your efforts have resulted in a significant 40% reduction in our collective water use. Thank you to all who participated diligently. Item number 3, we are now operating in a safe zone where moderate water usage protects our well and protects our license to operate. But do not relax and return to old habits because this crisis isn't over. Item number 4, because the drought is still with us, the 5 emergency measures implemented in July are still with us. We've continued to cut the amount you can use daily. Overusers are being charged at a higher rate. There is still a moratorium on new customers. Landscape watering is prohibited. And daily, we will continue to shut off the water supply if we use in excess of 100 cubic meters. Due to our concerns about excessively high levels of usage early in the summer, we have gradually reduced the gallons per month limit. If our community continues aggressive water saving practices and our collective usage stays at current low levels, there will be no need to reduce the limit any further. So that's a good news story for the community. So I think the most important thing to understand about this, you all know about rampant development down here. I mean, they're building homes and hotels and housing developments and stuff everywhere in the Wine Valley. And, you know, I mean, you just see it all everywhere. You say, how is this going to work? So the urgent need is not going to go away when the rains finally begin to fall. The key thing is, this is the new normal. Using, 60% less water is what we all have to try to do. There's no easy way out of this thing. So current demand vastly exceeds the available supply. And yes, long-term programs are encouraged. I'm sure we're looking at desalination plants. I know a community right next to us is looking at that currently. There are some risks with desalination to do with something similar to greenhouse warming. So we have to be aware of that. Increasing the salinity levels and the temperatures of the ocean is not really a good idea, but that's what is happening. But the one thing we can control is our usage. So thank you very much for having me. And I have to say, these 4 things that you guys recited earlier, this is great. This is what, similar to what we try to do with the water company. We certainly don't want to make enemies by seeming punitive, and we want to encourage relationships. So I'm all for these. I think democracy, telling the truth, and being fair, especially in this kind of environment, being fair about how we manage this business is just really critical. So thank you all very much. I will take some questions now, sir. Yes. Yes, yes.
But on the water side, we emphasize water reuse.
Right.
Included the solid portion, but the sanitation system, but remember water sanitation.
Right.
And so we're working with that.
But definitely we so together.
Okay,
50 years of.
okay. Let me just kind of fill in the viewers a little bit. So Emilio is telling us about his life work to do with reclamation of sewage and how that fits into the current water crisis issues we have here, and proposing that communities look at that as one of the potential solutions to solving the water shortage in this area. And in fact, that applies to every community everywhere. So perhaps you and I can talk more about that in the future and understand, how this thing can be done in bite sizes. Thank you. Any other questions? Sherry?
How much is regular shower? How many gallons is a regular shower after?
Well, it depends on the shower head, but it'll use anywhere from about 1 to 2.5 gallons per minute.
I just Googled it
Per minute.
yesterday, it's 17 gallons is the average shower.
Yeah.
Really?
It just said the average, I didn't read into how many minutes, but average shower time, 17 gallons.
Yeah, the average shower was about 17 gallons, and we're proposing that doing it the way we're discussing here would use about 4 or 5 gallons. So it's a big cut.
I wanted to add one thing. John and I spent about 7 or 8 years creeping. We had a water maker, and we filled the water tank. We didn't do it every day, but we fill it, and what were the tanks, like 50 gallons?
Yes, there were 2 of them,
Two
50
50-gallon tanks. We showered, we did, dishes, so I used regular dishes. We did everything that we normally do.
And we had a freshwater toilet that went into a holding tank.
Right, and we drank water, the water went through a filter system and, was desalinated, blah, blah, blah. And I think, what did we end up using on average day?
I think it was probably about 25 gallons. I mean, we could go just about a week on the 100 gallons.
Normally. Now, of course, the toilet, but you pumped it into a holding tank, so we weren't using water for that purpose. But we live this normal life, and you can do it. You have to be aware. And when somebody came on the boat, like, yes, you hear the water running. Now, we told you when you brush your teeth, shut the water off. You don't let it run. They're not used to it, so you hear the water, and oh my God, that was horrible. But you can do it and do everything. Wash your hair.
So for you folks on Zoom, I'm not sure you could hear that, but my wife and I lived for 7 years on a boat just before we moved to Mexico. And we were cruising the Atlantic from Canada down to Venezuela, a couple of years in the Caribbean. We had a water maker, so that was key. Quite a bit of fuel and quite a bit of propane, so we were able to anchor out all the time. But the key message here relative to water is you can learn how to live on very little water. I mean, at 2,000 gallons a month, we're way in excess of where we were on the boat. So there's still room to improve is the message. Nobody pays attention much to about how water is used. So that's the key message here. Any other questions? Yes, good night. Well, history in Mexico shows that they have funded large, super large desalination plants on a number of occasions. But then when the new administration was elected, there were rumors of rampant corruption and all kinds of problems. They canceled the programs.
That's what happened.
I know of that is funded. I think there's a lot of discussion. I don't know of anything that is funded between Rotary and Ensenada.
When you speak of a well, you speak a well in your residential community or is there a well?
No, it's our well. It's actually in Santa Anita, but it covers that whole territory. We provide water to Santa Anita. There's a small subdivision that was also started by the Stockers in between. We provide water to them, and then we have our own immediate community. So yes, it's a local well, and it draws from the same aquifer that all the farmers are using throughout that whole valley. Oh no, there are a lot of, many of them used by the farmers are not registered. They just, drive a shallow well. The water's only down about 15 feet. You go down 15, you got water. So, it's rampant overuse. And, when it comes to farming, I understand the need for farming, obviously. But this is unrestricted. It's a problem. And they draw water out of the estuary. They've run hoses. The estuary now is so depleted, they can't do it. So, any other questions? Yes, I see someone has their hand up here.
Yeah, a couple comments, John, and then Joy also has her hand up on Zoom.
Ah,
There you go.
We
Who has their
have-
hand up?
yes.
Yeah.
Somebody
so-
had their hand up. Gabe?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
You're muted, Gabe.
No, I'm not muted. Can't hear me?
I can hear you. I can hear you, Gabe.
Sorry, Gabe, we had our speaker up here.
Aha. Okay. John, we have a fairly new washing machine and Lucille noticed that it has a rapid wash cycle that we use now. And unless your clothes are filthy, it seems to work just fine. And it does the wash in 15 minutes instead of 40 minutes. So I'm sure it's reduced the water usage.
Yeah, that's great news. There are lots of new devices out there that are super when it comes to water saving. So,
Yeah. And then a second thing, and this is mostly for new construction. When we built our house, we plumbed the drains to separate the shower and bathroom sink drains from the other drains so that we can use that gray water and plumb it into our toilets. So we have the plumbing, we haven't set it up yet completely, but the plumbing's all there to take the shower water and pump it back into the toilet. So we're not using fresh water in the toilets.
very clever. Good news.
And then I wanted to add, there is one company in San Diego that sells drums and rainwater collectors. And if you have an address in California, you can actually get a rebate on them. But they're pretty large. I have one, I'm planning on getting a second, and it's 72 gallons that it will take from the rain. And so in addition to wells, as individuals, it's helpful that if whatever rain that is coming, we're able to collect it.
Yes, it's a great idea. Great idea. A
So
lot
I
more
put
than my
the
5-gallon
link,
bucket.
I put the link in the chat.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure talking with you. And enjoy the day and use less water. Oh,
If you have,
Gives us what?
if you have the water from your roof diverted into that barrel, it'll fill up in about five minutes
Yeah.
or less. We did that up in Oceanside.
Which is my toilet.
We had 250-gallon barrels that filled up in about 5 minutes from two separate sections of the room. John is going to leave us now because they have to get up to the States. Thanks again, Joe and Sandy, for being here. This is, I mean, he spoke in terms of La Mision, but this is an issue everywhere along Southern California for sure, and Baja, but water is a global issue. I recall about a month ago reading an article where CES is actually looking at rate structure changes to help curb use. So that's something that may eventually trickle down to us in terms of cost, just like it does in the US. And having been boaters for 20 years ourselves. We're very familiar with boat showers, and we now do the same thing in our RV. So, okay, folks. Thanks, John. So the rest of the agenda should go by pretty quickly here, I think. You have anything to add for the collaborative wine event, Scott? Scott's going to give us a short update on the wine event.
Good morning. Wine Festival Committee is plugging along. Yesterday, we actually went to Tijuana and had a meeting with CaliMax Corporate. It was a fantastic meeting. They're excited to help. They're committing to talk to us before the end of the month, but it really sounds like they're going to be, I think they're going to be one of our sponsors, if not the major sponsor. The other wonderful news that came out of it is they were talking about their goals and strategies, is that they really want to focus in on Rosarito, and they want to focus in on helping. And they've realized as a grocery store, the one thing they can help with is food. And when I was talking about our relationship with the food bank, they said, we really want to get involved with food bank. So I'm hoping to make introductions with them and the food bank people and see what they're willing to do. But it was a really exciting meeting. We're really encouraged about CaliMax being a part of the Wine Fest committee, or being part of the event. Any questions? Go ahead.
Vendors there, how are they gonna be financially?
Financially, I mean, we're open to other ideas that they have. I talked to them about the idea if they wanted the VIP section that they could serve, because they're also trying to promote their selection of wines. And I mentioned in the VIP booth, they could pour different wines as well as have like cheeses and things like that. And they talked about their artisanal beers and things. So they've got opportunity. I mean, if CaliMax came and said, we want to be your $10,000 sponsor, we're open to doing whatever they want. So we'll see what happens, but we're excited about it. Since I'm here and have the floor, I wanted to let you know that last week we talked about Brenda's health issues and trying to raise some money. I went home and started a GoFundMe campaign for her with the goal of raising $1,000. Within 3 days, we raised $2,015. So really, really thrilled to do that for her. I'm going to start. She doesn't want a bank transfer because she's got to claim that money. So I'm taking out chunks at the ATM to give her cash, and I'm hoping to get it all to her by the weekend. But really excited, and thank you to everybody that donated. A huge, huge thanks to John DeCecco, who's not here, but he donated a large amount of money to help Brenda. So really excited to help her out.
I was wondering if we could throw an idea out there and get her a used car. I think when she's better, she's gonna need transportation. So I don't know if anybody has any questions. I don't. Just a thought.
Yeah.
Thank you, Scott.
The other thing that's coming out of this is for the wine festival collection of money in Mexico. We're entered into the agreements with Firmex, who, is that right? You can talk about it, yes. My understanding of the agreement, as I read, is we can use that for collecting money other than just the wine festival as well, correct?
But you don't get that money. They will pay your bills for you. Right. But you don't get them.
I can talk about it.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, can you,
So someone have, oh, mute this one. Oh, you're gonna do it from there? Okay, I see what's going on. Okay, let me figure out how to do this. Done.
no, I don't.
Once you come up.
Okay. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. So just to give you brief information about Firmex, we're filling out an application to be part of, like working in partnership with Firmex, which is a nonprofit organization here in Mexico, Donatoria. And the process is that if we have like a big sponsor like Alimax per se, they're established here in Mexico, and if we get the $10,000, hopefully, what they do, we send that amount of money to Formex, and Formex will send the letter for tax exempt to this company. So Formex is within the Rotary Club, and they're completely legally here. So all the procedures will be taken by them. So we won't touch the money, but once we have the need for our projects, they'll pay for whatever project we do based on the funds we have available with them. So that keeps clarity within all the transactions within the club. Yes, Leslie.
Just to clarify, that would be for donations coming from Mexico or from the US?
Monetary donations within Mexico only, because they cannot issue a tax exempt for any company in the States. So it's only for Mexico. Any questions here in Zoom? Gabe, yes. I can hear you, Gabe.
Can you hear me now?
Now, yes.
Okay. Is there a chance that that could eliminate the need for us having a donatorio?
I think it would be best if we continue with our efforts to become a donatoria, because then we will have more flexibility. They're being very willing to work with us, but I think it's also good for us to be a donatoria if we get funding from other states. I'm sorry, from the states as well, even though give them a letter, but at least they know what we're doing is a non-for-profit activities.
Okay, and then one more question. Any update on Brenda's health?
I sent her a text and she's doing better. We had a meeting with the directors from the university and the elementary school, and she wanted to come, but she was not feeling well yet. And she got the mumps. That's contagious. So I told her just to stay home, have rest as much as possible, but she's improving as time passes by. But thank you for asking. Another question? No? Okay, just to give you a brief update on Rotary Kids, Professor Edna Huerta from University of Mexicali in Rosarito gave us her action plan, and I'll be sharing it with Mike and Patty, so if they'll be willing to share it with the club, so you can read it. It's been translated into English, and we're moving forward. This coming Saturday, I'm visiting the director at her center. She actually opened a center for elders, for women as well. And what else? So if we get funding through the Rotary district, we might probably be able to use the magic circles within the Rotary program. However, that's not contemplated on the action plan right now because we don't have those funds yet from the district, but perhaps if they come available, they'll be implemented in the schools, which is great. Well, I think that's it. Thank you.
Support the raffle for the Prius and other things, because the districts are collecting those funds specifically for this program. So that are the math program, which we could then use with our Rotary Kids program. The Bond Barrels fundraising event this last week collected about $800. That was on Saturday or Sunday at the Valle, and